Okay. All right. So the first thing that I do want to look at is that annotated bibliography source for discussion, revision group discussion board. Such long titles. Okay, so let's go to the discussion board. And we're going to scroll down and scroll down and scroll down. All right. Last annotated bibliography revision group. So what we want to do, I want to give you guys, again, time in class to do what we have always done. Want you guys to choose at least two of your classmates to read through their annotation, annotation for source 4. Remember, that's the media exaggerates or in an absolute state. Look through there. Your assignment is to look and give like the two positives and 2 suggestions on what they could work on. Do your best there to help them out. Again, sometimes we miss the easiest formatting issues because we're not looking at it. We're too focused on just getting the content on the page. So what I would like to do, even if you don't have an annotated bibliography draft on this discussion board, I still want you guys all to participate, because if you guys remember, the discussion boards have 2 parts. You have to post your draft, and then you have to respond to 2 classmates. So I want to give you the opportunity to accomplish at least half of that in class. So let me see here. It's about 12:40. Let's take 20 minutes. So then at 1 o'clock, I'll turn my mic on and I'll see how everybody is doing, and I'll see if you need more time to finish up any of your comments, and we will go from there. Does anybody have any questions regarding the annotated bibliography source for revision group discussion board? Okay. Let me see. I thought I was going to tell you one more thing. Give me a second. I forgot. Okay. If the draft that they posted does have all 4 sources on it, because that's what your final draft has to look like, the only source that you need to focus on is just source 4. So whichever one they chose either Pinker's, the media exaggerates, or in an absolute state. Okay, so don't worry about the other annotations. Other than that, if you finish with 2 of your classmates' drafts, and there's still a little bit of time left on the clock before I check in, please feel free to look at another classmate's draft, okay? All right, so I'm going to turn my camera off, and I'm going to turn my mic off, and I will turn my mic back on at 1 o'clock to see if we need any more time with this discussion board. I will be participating as well. So I'll talk to you guys again in about 20 minutes. Okay, so just remember that your responses to the revision group discussion board are due by midnight tonight. So if for some reason you want to go back and look at responses, and maybe you look at your submission, but maybe there's only one response, maybe it's only mine. If you wait just a little bit, give your classmates a little bit more time, there might be more responses tomorrow morning. I don't know, could be. So I guess keep that in mind. Okay, so just so you have it in your brain. Oh yeah, okay. The final draft of your annotated bibliography source 4, and remember, this draft will include all 4 of your annotations. That final draft is due on Monday by midnight. Okay, so you do have a little bit of time to wait for all of your classmates to have that chance to respond to your posts. So it's up to you. But wanted to give you guys a heads up there. Okay. Let me take us out of this little whiteboard here. Give me a second to close out of it. I'm going to take us into Blackboard now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take us into our sources folder. So just so we have our sources kind of fresh in our brain here. So recap, we had video by Ann Curzon, so What Makes a Word Real. We've got The Way You See Color, how talking about the coronavirus as an enemy combatant can backfire. We Call Workers Essential. Ideological barriers to American Sign Language. Mr. Rogers had a simple set of rules. Oh, and FYI, so you remember how when we clicked on the source and it was talking about Maxwell King and how he was working on a book about Mr. Rogers' life? That book has now been released. I actually follow the Fred Rogers Association or something along those lines. I follow them on Facebook, and they posted that the book had been released last month, beginning of this month, recently. So that book has been released. So guess what I'm going to be reading very soon. I've been waiting for that book to come out. So I get really excited over those things, but I'm very interested to see how Mr. King goes through Mr. Rogers' life and how he pieces that together. I think it'll be especially interesting now, having used this source for the past couple years. So that was just a little sidebar there. Sorry. We also read The Media Exaggerates, and we read In an Absolute State. Okay, so that was just to kind of get those in your brain here. All right, so at the very end of class on Monday, we jumped into the synthesis paper. Okay, so now if you remember, okay, so you had your textual analysis, and now we're jumping into a synthesis. So the textual analysis, what you guys did with that paper was take the sources and you really picked them apart, just like in science class, how you got to cut into creatures or whatever, and you really kind of analyzed what they were made of and what some of their attributes were. Now with a synthesis, what we are doing is we are looking at our sources, and please remember to use the sources in our sources folder. You're supposed to use 4 sources for this paper, but you're only required to choose 3 from the sources folder. You do have that option to go and get a 4th source elsewhere, but if you would like just to use the four of our 8 sources in this folder, you are very welcome to. You don't have to go find an additional source, but you need 4 sources. Have to use 4 sources on this paper. So what you have to do is, look at those 4 sources, and now instead of breaking the sources all apart, now what we're doing is we're kind of putting all of the sources together in one picture, and we are looking for similarities, we are looking for differences. What are the themes beyond language? Obviously they're about language, but what are some of the other underlying themes that these sources had? And one way to approach that is by looking at our class questions. So the synthesis paper is kind of based off of those 5 class questions. And I thought they were listed in here, but they're not. So I have to click out. So there's our 5 class questions right there. Okay. So those questions will help us develop the synthesis paper. Now, if you guys remember, hang on here. As you can tell, I have a lot of windows open. Hang on just a second. Let me get rid of some of them so it makes it a little bit easier to maneuver. And hopefully, whoops, it won't bog us down very much. Okay. There we go. That should be a little bit cleaner and easier to view. So let me show that to you. Okay. So if you guys recall correctly, we did like super fast crash course in thesis statements. We looked over this final synthesis essay prompt document that I had. And once we get through this together, I'm going to save it and I'm going to put it in the synthesis essay assignment folder so that you guys have access to it. Okay. Because this is, you're working on this along with me. So the essay prompt this document goes beyond a little bit more than what the assignment details are listed in the assignment folder. So I've got the 5 class questions, all there listed for you. Okay. The details as far as it's a 4 to 6 page paper. All right. I don't think I have it listed in this one, but remember 4, right there, 4 sources. We need at least 4 sources. 3 of them have to come from that folder, but you can choose all 4 of them if you want. So let me come down to the actual graphic organizer that we were working on together when we ran out of time. Class was done. So we took one of the groups had shared this thesis statement. And what we did was we looked at it and we kind of pulled 3 different main points that we could pull out of there. Okay. And then what we would do is from that thesis statement, we would look at those main points and we would put the main points in here in our graphic organizer. And if you guys remember, together, we looked through our sources and our themes. So our sources are here. These were the themes that were discussed in our class questions. And so together I had you guys kind of give me your feedback as far as which source fit which topic. And obviously some of them, fit all of the topics, but some of them didn't. So we had that in there. So we put the sources in here that we could kind of attach to those main points that we have in our thesis statement. Now, you as a student looking at this thesis statement, we might look at it and go, it might be too specific, okay? Because we do have to write a 4 to 6 page paper. So if we looked at it and went, that might be a little more specific than we want to be, So all we would have to do actually is, let's take a look at this. Let's go languages, because this was just a working thesis. Language's impact on society has revolutionized over time and has transformed into multiple forms of communications. But I want you guys to at least have that third point in there. My worry about including ASL in our thesis statement is that you will be stuck in that category to write your paper. And it might be a little bit difficult to focus just on that. Not that you can't mention ASL and our sources that talk about it, but maybe you would approach that differently. Let's see. So let's reword this just a little bit. Language is impacted over time, transformed into multiple forms of communications. Multiple forms of communications that are viewed and used differently depending on the community or society they I don't know, something along those lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep that in there because that's some good wording. We might want to use that wording later. So here's what I want you to do. We are a small class today. Not that we were a big class to begin with, but I want to kind of put this idea of sources and themes into play. Okay, so we've got 4 of you in here, right? Make sure I didn't lose anybody. Okay. Laugh at myself here. What I want you guys to do is this. We're going to look at this graphic organizer, okay? Keeping in mind, our sources are numbered the same way that they are numbered in our sources folder, okay? Well, sort of. They go in the same order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, okay? So I'm going to have you guys take just maybe 5 minutes, okay? I'm going to assign you guys a source, and we're going to try to find something within that source that talks about impact on society, okay? Because we discussed as a class that these are the sources, the source numbers, that talk about language's impact on society. So let's do this. All right, I'm going to go off what I have written on my paper. So Haley, I want you won't have time to watch the video, but I want you to think back to Corsan's video. You're welcome to flip it on really quickly if you want to, or even go look back at your own annotated bibliography. You guys can do that as well. And I want you to think of something that she shared or an example that she used that had something to do with language's impact on society. Okay? And if you guys get confused as I'm asking you to do that, please let me know. Okay? Hunter, I want you to go and look at how talking about the coronavirus as an enemy combatant, I want you to look specifically in that source and tell me what was said, what examples were used, whatever, that connected to language's impact on society. Okay? All right. Richard, I want you to go and look at the source that we had that was "We Call Workers Essential" and do the same thing. What was said in there? What examples were used in there that connected to this point had something to do with language's impact on society. All right. And then Stephanie, I want you, I won't give you the hard one. I won't give you, I won't give you number 5 because that one's a little bit difficult. But I want you to go look at the Mr. Rogers source and do the same thing. Tell me what Maxwell King wrote in that article that would have to do with language's impact on society. Okay, does anybody have any question what I'm asking you to do? I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to do it, and I will leave it up to you. You can either type your response in the chat box, or you can just turn on your mic when it's your turn and let us know what you found. Okay, everybody good? Thumbs up, I'm hoping. Yes. We shall find out. Okay, cool. I am getting some thumbs up. That's what I wanted. All right, so let's see. It is... Oh, some of you are already putting them in. So let's say we're going to go about 1:21, and I'll check in with you guys and see if you need any more time. So work until 1:21. Otherwise, put your responses in the chat box or wait and we'll turn on our mics in just a moment. Okay? Okay. So, and then thank you for putting that in there because sometimes I forget. So King wrote that article. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my in-text citation in there just so I can remember for later on. Now, let me see. Haley, how are you doing? Do you need more time, or did you just want to turn your mic on and let us know, or what's up? Okay, and then let's see here. So we'll wait about another minute or so here. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. So I always have to look at the numbers of the sources because I can't ever remember. All right. Oops. No, I don't want it to be bolded. Oops. And let me see, that one was, you think I would have all of the authors' names memorized by now. Okay, so kind of look over as we're waiting for our last source here. Just look at, you know, some of the quotes and the paraphrases and examples that some of your classmates have put up there, and thinking of the point that we could make as far as the impact on society. Okay. And you guys will have to tell me if I did it correctly. I was thinking, like here for source 3, which is how talking about the coronavirus, I was thinking these were direct quotes and that this one seemed like a paraphrase. So if I got it wrong, let me know, because we definitely want to make sure if we used those pieces in our paper, we would want to remember to put direct quotes in those quotation marks, and then our paraphrases and summaries can just be written without those quotation marks. Okay, we got an awesome kind of paraphrase slash summary here. That was Corzan, right? Let me see if I can spell her name right. Okay, so we have an in-text citation in there. All right, so you guys we looked at 4 of the potential sources that we made a connection to the impact on society. So now what I want to do, if you guys use this graphic organizer, here is what you can do. So I am going to highlight everything that you guys put together here, okay? And I'm going to open up a new document. I'm going to put it all in here, okay? So this is our paraphrased and our quoted information. If for whatever reason you guys are not seeing a Word document with my cursor clicking around all over the place, be sure to let me know, okay? So this has to do with impact. Well, I gotta make sure I'm saying that right. Yes, impact on society. I panicked. Okay, and then here's all the great information that you guys got from the sources. So let's put it into a paragraph. Okay, so you guys went and got me the information. I'm going to put it into a paragraph, okay? Ooh, that's another good thing to put in there. Okay, hang on. We have okay, I'm going to just put it in my words here. Okay, so let me get rid of our numbers. All right, so the first thing we would do is, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to do everything, but we would start our paragraph off with a topic sentence. Something that has to do with impact on society, okay? Or let me be more specific and put a if I could spell, language's impact on society. So that's the topic of this paragraph. That's the point we want to discuss in this paragraph. And so we would have our topic sentence, and then we would maybe lead into okay, so let's see here. Oh, here, okay. I was looking at our okay. All right, so we've got how to make the yeah, I don't want to use this. Yeah, okay. Okay. So we can kind of use that to connect here. And again, I wasn't positive what was a direct quote or not. So we would have to definitely make sure we pay attention to that. Tabitha. I was just going to ask you for an author's name. And we have to have an in-text citation because I just was talking about her. So, and I used her name in the sentence. So now I would just take a piece of the title of her article. Oops. Because that would lead us to the citation on the bottom, okay? I am just going to take, actually, that piece right there. And you can always move your thoughts and paraphrases and quotes around however you want. So you got language affects cognition and cognition affects our behaviors. This shows us the cognition, behavior connection, which is something Fred Rogers truly understood. And then we've got our Fredish in here. And then let's see here. Obviously we have like not full sentences just yet on some of these. So, let's see, level of understanding for everyone. And then what was Jagger's first name? Do you get, oh, never mind. You did put it in there for me. And then actually, since I used, okay. All right, so I'm going to take this out. All right. So all I did was I took really quickly those thoughts that you guys had. So if I put that at 12-point font, and then I put it double spaced, like how you guys are supposed to use, look at what a nice, obviously, okay, so before you guys get too excited, obviously the paragraph itself still needs work. We would need to double check our sentence structure. We would need to make sure that we had full sentences, good punctuation, that our wording was correct. But do you guys see how utilizing this graphic organizer and going before you even try to write a paragraph? So before you even go and try to like find quotes to fit what you are trying to say, if you look at those main points that you want to use, then go and look at the sources and try to find examples in those sources. If you organize it that way, you can do just what I did. You can highlight all that, you can copy, paste it in a paragraph. And then, you know, one of your fellow classmates makes an excellent point. So we have this paragraph, but now it needs filler. It needs more, a little bit more of our thoughts. So be careful as you guys are writing the paper that you don't use more sources than more of your brain. Okay. We want your thought. We want your connection to whatever these points are that you're trying to make. But as I said, I mean, look at how, and that took you guys, granted you guys split the work up, but that was under 10 minutes. You guys went and you found all those different connections to the language's impact on society that were mentioned in those sources. Take it each one separately and then try to put them together and then add in the filler, which I hate to say your thoughts are filler, but your thoughts are the filler and the connection to bring all those sources together. So now what I want you guys to do is give me some reactions, either one of our little picture reactions, or tell me in the chat box what you think about what we just did. Is it helpful? Does it make sense on how it could help you in your paper? Does it just stress you out more? Because I am seeing some sad faces. So I wanted to try to give you an option of how you can just take those sources and not have to spend so much time digging through them. Okay? All right, now, how many of you, and I probably know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, how many of you would like me to place I plan to put the essay prompt and the sources and theme breakdown that we did together. I'm going to put that in the assignment folder for the synthesis essay. How many of you would like me to also save this document, the paragraph that we put together as a class, would like me to put all that in the assignment folder? Let me know. Because I don't ever want to put too much stuff in a folder that it gets lost and you get confused what to look like. But okay. Sorry, I'm laughing at some of your reactions and your chats in the chat box there. Okay, so I will, let's see here. Let's do this really quickly. I'm just going to say this is our... And I'm just going to put today's date. Whoops, I can't use that in a title. Okay. So really quickly, so everybody knows where it is, let's go into the assignment folder. Sorry, your guys' comments are funny. All right, so let's put those items in there. So the first thing is, let's go and find that synthesis prompt right there. And I'm doing this on the screen so that way you guys will be able to find everything. Because we all worked on this together, you guys are allowed to use this however you want, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not plagiarism, it's not anything. It's what we started on working together. Okay, so let me go put the prompts in there too, so that way you guys have the how we broke down the sources, okay? I mean, you can give each other credits if you want to, I guess. All right, sources and theme right there. I'm going to put points there. Okay, so we've got that there. You guys have access to that as well. And one thing that I want to remind you guys is, let's see here. all those windows again. This document, so this is the one that I'm just uploading right now. It has the list of your sources. It has the connections that you guys made as far as which source discusses each of these different themes or points, however you want to word that. It has actually 2 thesis statements that we kind of worked on together. All right. So you guys are allowed to use variations of these thesis statements. I mean, use the connections that we've made here. Again, it's something that we've all worked on together. So it's not plagiarism because it's what we've worked on together. It's what we've started. Okay. It's not like you're taking somebody else's saved paper and running with it on your own. And then let me put the paragraph that we just put together. What is today? 20th. All right. Oops. Okay, let me go attach that. And then I'm going to remind you guys of one more thing. Okay, so just to remind you where all this is. So when you sign into Blackboard, it brings you right here. You're going to want to go to the assignments page, click on the folder that says synthesis paper. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, that's where those 3 documents are. So what I want to remind you of is this one extremely important thing here. So if you guys use this graphic organizer, like we have been working on together here, okay, and you utilize these columns to go and look at the sources and put in, paraphrases or summaries or whatever, again, go look at your annotated bibliographies because you might be able to find some of those points and you won't have to go digging through the articles to find them, okay? So if you put all those in there, please make sure that you take the time to put in the in-text citations. So then that way you don't have to go back and find them later, okay? And then keep in mind when you put them in your paragraphs, remember how as I was going through and I was placing them in there, some of them I had to change a little bit because like here I mentioned Tabitha Moses, and since I mentioned my author in my sentence, I had to change my in-text citation to include just a piece of the article title, okay? But please make sure that you are using in-text citations whenever you paraphrase, whenever you summarize, or whenever you directly quote any of these sources. Okay, you guys have to do that. I don't want to tell anybody that they committed plagiarism. We don't want that. We don't do that here, okay? So those documents are available for you. As I said, you guys can all use them. It's just a starter. I would highly, highly suggest that you use that graphic organizer and go through, figure out what main points you want to discuss. Okay. As I said, on this one right here, the sources and themes document, that's one that has 2 different thesis statements that we kind of put together. I want you guys to really think about what points do I want to make in this paper. Okay. That was kind of a lot to put together, take in, and make our brains grasp onto it. So here's what I want to do, you guys. I do want to talk about the synthesis paper a little bit more, but I want you to go on break because I don't want to overwhelm you. I want you to go be human for, let's do our 12 minutes like we usually do. Oh, not 10 hours. That would not be good. I don't think you guys want to stick around with me for that long. So let me reset that. Okay, so let's take 12 minutes. Go be human, go get caffeine, go have a biology break, whatever you guys need to do. But when we come back, I want to show you just a couple more things with this synthesis paper so that you guys can get started on your rough drafts, okay? So go take a break. I'll see you guys in 12 minutes. Okay, guys, do me a favor and take to the chat box and just say hi or I'm here or something along those lines. I actually did open up my door and peek my head outside and even open up a window to let some fresh air in. So, yes, I did. Okay. Just taking a peek at who said hi and that they were back. All right. Okay, so I just got to rearrange my screen here. Okay. What else was I going to tell you? All right. So, a couple more things about the synthesis paper. Okay. I want to make you guys as comfortable as possible with writing this paper. I know it can be somewhat daunting. It can seem like a daunting task to attack. So what I wanted to just kind of reference back to again was, as you guys had worked together our last class on Monday, I had told you to think of the different topics or points that you wanted to discuss and throw those into a thesis statement. So on the sources and themes document that's there in your assignment folder, we all watched me upload them. There is just those couple of thesis statements that we kind of had looked at. Now, depending on how you want to approach your paper, that means your thesis statement could look just a couple of different ways. For the second thesis statement, we went really generic and actually just used the topics that are discussed in your class questions. Okay, so you've got the 5 class questions. And then the first 4 talk about these 4 topics. The 5th class question actually is just in asking you, what have you learned about language up to this point in your life? Okay. So for the thesis statement, we really just focused on those 4 points that those class questions kind of allude to. And that's, how the generic second thesis statement came about. So one of the first things that you guys are going to want to do is to think about the points that you may want to make. And then, my suggestion is to use this graphic organizer, put those points in. The graphic organizer is set up to actually, I think it's like 6 points. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, 6 points. You can put in that. So beyond that, we filled in it's supposed to be paraphrased information, but what we did is we kind of did 2 steps in one, because you'll notice the way the graphic organizer is set up, it has that section in there underneath the points. We've got our main point number 1, excuse me. So main point number 1 for this example is the impact on society. So we went and looked at those sources to try to find those examples and quotes, and you guys have all those in there. So we put it in that section. But you'll notice underneath it says your argument or explanation supporting that point. We kind of combined those two, in the one column, which is fine. The graphic organizer is just a general outline for you to follow to help you out, okay? So let me really quickly take you back into the internet. Now, this was the document that we briefly looked at on Monday that described the difference between an analysis essay and a synthesis essay. So the document breaks down, it gives like a 8-step thing on how to write a synthesis essay. Of course, it's not as easy as just following, numbered steps, but let's look at this. So we know for our synthesis paper, we have to have 4 sources. Okay, we have to use a total of 4 sources. If you want to use more than that, more power to you. But you only have to use 4. 3 of them have to be our sources, and you're welcome to go look for a 4th source on your own. But if you want to, just go ahead and use 4 sources from our sources folder. So the sources have already kind of been taken care of for you. The general topic has been taken care of for you in that this synthesis essay is supposed to be about our sources in the sources folder with the topic of language. That's our class topic, okay? So the first step, identify the appropriate texts to use. Kind of depends on you, again, if you want to go find more sources. Step 2, read the sources carefully. Take notes or annotate your own copies. You've done that, okay? That's why these annotated bibliographies are so important, because you're actually doing prep work for your papers by doing these annotated bibliographies, okay? So those first 2 steps are actually taken care of. Now I want you to look at step 3 that's listed here on the screen. I'm going to zoom it a little bit because I don't know, the devices that you guys are working on. I don't know how big your screens are. So, okay. So thinking of our sources and thinking of our topic of language, think about the connections among the varying sources. Okay, all of our sources that we have. What kind of connections do certain ones make? Okay, and think, do any of the sources agree or disagree on any points? Can you think of, and I want you guys to use the chat box for this, can you think of at least 2 sources that maybe talk about the negative aspects of language? Which sources have we read through that talk about the negatives of language? You can just type the titles in the chat box. Which ones talk about the negative aspects of language? I'll even help you. And pull up our sources folder. I can see you guys are putting some in there already. Actually, probably what would have been easiest is to do this, right? Okay, so one of your classmates says, how talking about the coronavirus, and they also said, we call workers essential. Okay. Another classmate talked about in an absolute state, kind of how the focus is, well, I mean, that is the whole focus in there is the language, and how those certain absolute terms, which have a negative connotation, can be used as red flags for, mental health issues, things like that. So I guess in an absolute state could be a negative and a positive all at the same time. So you kind of you try to do that. You try to look at all 8 of these sources and look at, okay, which ones were similar, which ones had some similarities to them. So that's another way to go about it. We decided on topics and then we linked the sources to the topics, but you can do it a different way and look at it and go, okay, which ones of these sources are very similar? Okay, what connections do they have? Okay. So where the road? Okay, yeah, in What Makes a Word Real, she did talk about words she didn't like. All right, so think of that, do the sources agree or disagree on any points? Does one source provide like a little bit of background for another? Like they could really kind of help each other out. Does one source take up where another one leaves off? Okay, so maybe I would look at, we call workers essential. Jaggers starts up right away talking about, that term essential and how it's being, or it was used with the intent to be positive, but now the term essential worker has like a negative connotation to it. Nobody really feels like it actually was a good thing. So I could start talking about Jaggers and then lead right into how talking about the coronavirus as an enemy combatant, those two kind of mesh well together. I feel like Jaggers sets up the topic for Moses. So you can think of those kind of connections. Does one source provide an example of an idea discussed in another source? And do any common ideas or viewpoints run through all sources? So besides language, are there those common ideas and viewpoints in your sources? So number 3, the third thing on the list here, actually is a way to help you kind of brainstorm for the points that you want to make in your paper. Okay. Keeping in mind when you guys write the synthesis paper, I don't know if you remember, you have 2 options of how you want to write the paper. You can write it either as a survey, they call it, which is like an informative paper. So you can write it as an informative paper, just kind of making those connections and the similarities and the differences. Or you could write it as an argumentative essay. So if we looked at this first thesis statement here, if we wanted to focus on ASL, this is actually a persuasive thesis because we're talking about how these certain communities and societies are seeing ASL as a privileged language, and our opinion, at least from reading this thesis statement, is that that's a ridiculous notion, that it's not a privileged language, but it is an actual full-form language. It is a way to communicate. So that's how we would write a persuasive paper. We would focus on that. The second one that we have is more of just that survey or informative paper. We just have, these points here, and we're going to bring in those sources and just kind of discuss how each source hit on those points. So keep that in mind. You can write it as an informative or you can write it as an argumentative. Okay. So thinking about all those sources and the connections and the points they make, keep that in mind. And those things are the things that are going to help you write a thesis statement. Those things are the things that are going to point to the points and the subpoints that you want to make in your paper. Okay? So, for class on Monday, one of your assignments is to start working on your thesis statement, your synthesis paper, and to have a rough draft. Okay. So I want you guys to utilize this graphic organizer. I want you to come up with a thesis statement. I want you to start, forming those paragraphs, using the sources, go through what we did here. You don't have to use these two thesis statements. These were just examples. Come up with something on your own. What points do you guys want to talk about? What do you want to discuss in your synthesis paper? Decide what sources you want to look at. Remember that you have to have 4 sources. Okay. So before we start class on Monday, you guys will need to submit a rough draft of your synthesis paper on the revision group discussion board. Okay. We're going to be looking at those right away. This is an accelerated class, so we move fast. Okay. So the question I have for you is, do you have any synthesis essay or paper questions for me? I'm going to go back into that assignment folder. Okay. So your goal for Monday, we want that introduction with a really good thesis statement. I want to see some paragraphs developed with those sources. Get those sources in there. Okay. As you're using the sources, as you're plunking them in your paper, make sure you're adding them to your sources page at the end. So then that way you don't have to, once you've written all your paper, you got to go, oh, what sources did I use? And then have to try to put them on the page. Add them to your sources page at the end of your paper as you're putting them in the body of your paper. Okay. It's okay if the draft that you submit Monday morning isn't a full draft. We want as much as possible. Okay. Give us something to use in our peer review. Okay. And remember, all of those documents that we worked on are right here. All right. Okay. All right, we're going to walk away from the synthesis paper for a minute then. All right, one of the other things that you guys have to work on for Monday is a discussion board. Okay, let me take us to the discussion board. I'm looking at the to-do list to make sure that I tell you guys everything. Okay, so hold on. As you guys send me questions and comments and things like that, I try to answer them. Let's see, why is it not letting me click on stuff here? Okay, that's weird. Okay, so let's look at the discussion board. This discussion board, you got to scroll down to. Let me see, the last one we did was pronouns. So this is the very, very last one of these grammar and mechanics discussion boards that you guys have to do. This is called brush strokes. So let's review what on earth we mean by brush strokes. If I have any artists in class, you know what happens, with your brush strokes. Each one is different, whether it be in color or texture. They all have a role to play, but each brush stroke obviously makes the painting more beautiful, more interesting, more compelling. Okay. In writing, an individual, a grammarian, I guess we could call him, by the name of Harry Noden, came up with this concept of brush strokes in writing. Okay. And so here on this discussion board, there is this document called Noden's Brushstrokes. And I'm just going to, why is this not letting me do anything? Okay. This happens every once in a while. Let's figure out why. I think this happened to me one other time in our class where it wouldn't let me click on it. Yeah, it's doing it again. You can do that one. Well, that's fun. Okay. Hang on a second and let me see why that is not working. Okay, I might have to go get that document from another source for you guys. It looks like the link is broken. I want you to be able to have access to it. Yeah, why is that not working? Yep, I am going to have to reload that for you guys. Well, I'm glad we checked that because that would be annoying for you to try to get stuff done when you couldn't access it. Okay, just a couple more steps for me to get this document in here for you. And hopefully, okay. Now we'll see if that actually works for you guys. All right, come back to it. Brush strokes, okay. Oh, except for it kept that in there. All right, so here is our brush strokes document. So if we click on it, it's a 3-page document and it talks about these different brush strokes. So I believe there's 5 of them. There's painting with participles, painting with absolutes, painting with appositives, painting with adjectives out of order, and painting with action verbs. Now, this document is nice in that it gives you examples. In a lot of them in like real life literature, like there's an example in here from Ernest Hemingway and the way he wrote and how he used painting with participles in his sentences. But I want to make sure that you guys fully understand each one of these brush strokes, okay? So we're going to go into depth just a little bit more. So you'll notice here on this discussion board, at the very top, there's something in here that says slideshow for in class. That is what I am going to click on right now. This is an activity that we're going to go through together, and I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to come up with examples together so that way I know for sure you understand each one of these brush strokes, okay? So let me really quickly get rid of my face and open this up. Okay. So this is the brush strokes that he is referring to. Well, how come that's not moving forward? All right. So just in your brain, okay, I want you to look at this wonderful, wonderful picture of Grumpy Cat. I believe Grumpy Cat passed away, didn't he? Refresh my memory if you guys know, but I swear Grumpy Cat passed away. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So in your brains right now, just think of like a sentence about Grumpy Cat. You don't have to share it with me. Just kind of think of it, okay? So as I use the analogy, but now it is bread. As I use the analogy in painting, okay, just like artists use brushstrokes, the different brushstrokes, we do that when we write as well. We don't want boring sentences like "this is grumpy cat," "grumpy cat was grumpy." I mean, those are the type of sentences we use with our primer books in elementary school. But now we want you guys to do more. So here is a list here, again, of those 5 brushstrokes. So participles, absolutes, appositives, adjectives out of order, and action verbs, okay? So we're going to skip the charts here. All right. So let's look at the first brushstroke, excuse me, painting with participles, okay? Participle definition, you guys. A participle is an ing or an ed verb, okay, tagged on to the beginning or the ending of a sentence, okay? Usually, we know English, there's always an exception to every rule, but usually you will find that ing or ed verb at the beginning or the ending of a sentence, okay? So let's look at an example. Let's say we have a super generic sentence that just said, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. Okay, there's a little bit of detail in there. But if we painted with participles on that sentence, we would have hissing, slithering, and coiling, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. Okay, so we've got 3 participles right there at the beginning of our sentence, just like we're told, okay, beginning or ending. We listed them right there at the beginning, and it gives a whole lot more to it, doesn't it? It creates much more of a visual than the basic sentence. Okay, hissing, slithering, and coiling, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. So that is painting with participles. Okay. There is something called a participle phrase. So these are just participles by themselves, the ing words. But you can also create a participle phrase. All right, and so all a participle phrase is a participle along with a modifier, so something with more detail. So we've got a base sentence of hissing and coiling, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. But let's turn our participles into a phrase. So hissing their forked red tongues and coiling their cold bodies, the diamond-scaled snakes attacked their prey. Okay, so we still have our participles, but what we've done is we've added some modifiers, some more description in there. Okay, hissing what? Coiling what? We've answered those questions. And it makes it even more descriptive, right? Okay, so here's what I'm going to have you guys do. Since we are a small class today, I'm going to stick you guys in one breakout group together. Turn on your mics. Please, if one of you would volunteer to be a scribe to write down the sentence so you can share it with me. I'm going to put you in a breakout group for about, we'll do 5 minutes. Let's see what you guys can come up with in 5 minutes. And I want you to create a sentence using participles. You can either use just participles, okay, kind of like the first example, or you can get fancy and you can try to use a participle phrase, but it's up to you, whatever you guys decide. So you are going to write a sentence about this image right here, and you are going to use at least one participle or one participle phrase about this sad looking clown right here, okay? Do you have any questions on what you need to do in this breakout group? Okay, so write one sentence about this image right here and use at least one participle or one participle phrase. And reminder, participle is an ing or ed verb that's either at the beginning or the ending of a sentence. Okay, let me come back to the picture. All right, so when I put you in your breakout groups, you're not going to see this picture anymore, but I don't think it's a very easy one to forget. So 5 minutes, and then I'm going to bring you back into class. Okay, so when you get into your groups, turn your mics on, share your ideas, and designate one of you to share the sentence with me once you get back into the class session. So you guys used the frowning, depressed clown walked into the ring for his last circus performance. So frowning and depressed are both participles. All right. Let's look at the second paintbrush. All right. So the second one is called absolutes. Okay, it's painting with absolutes. All right. So what is an absolute? An absolute is a two-word combination. So it's a combo of a noun plus a participle. Okay, so you guys already conquered the participle. So participle is an ing or ed verb. So you're adding a noun plus a participle, or a noun plus a participle phrase. Okay, and you're just kind of adding that to a sentence, which helps add like an action of an image, okay? All right, so let's look at some examples here. So just a really generic sentence, the cat attacked the dog. Okay, kind of boring. So now let's try to add an absolute. So we've got claws digging, feet kicking, the cat attacked the dog. So we've got noun, participle, noun, participle. Okay? All right. And remember, the participle phrase is just when you have that greater description on there. So what I'm going to want you guys to do is I'm going to show you, you probably saw the hockey image. We're going to go look at that image. Want you guys to work together again, and this time create a sentence that uses absolutes. Okay, so you guys either need to add a noun plus a participle or a noun plus a participle phrase. Okay, so maybe decide on a quick sentence first and then figure out how you want to add the absolutes to it. Okay, so write a quick sentence about this US hockey team and then use like one absolute. So this sentence used two, right? Claws digging, feet kicking. You guys only need to add one to your sentence. Okay, so let's do another 5 minutes. We're trying to do these quick. Same thing, turn your mics on, discuss, come up with a sentence that uses one example of absolutes, and designate somebody who is willing to share it with me as soon as you guys get back into the class session, okay? So let me get that up. Let's see here. Okay, all right, 5 minutes. All right, so you guys came up for your absolute. Let's see here. The U.S. hockey team scored the winning goal at the very last moment. Okay, so we need a noun with that participle. Okay, so you guys are close. If I'm going to type this in the chat box here too. So all we would need to do is flip it around just a little bit to make it an absolute. So hold on, let me type this up here. Come on. I hate it when it freezes me out here. Every once in a while, it doesn't want me to do the chat box. So I'm just going to have to really quickly do this and see if it'll let me do it then. There we go. Okay. So I flipped your wording around a little bit in order to make it the absolute that we are looking for. So because you need to keep in mind the format of it is the absolute has to be the noun first and then the participle. Okay. So in the chat box, I just changed it a teensy bit, changed your sentence just a teensy bit. So I did goal scoring. The U.S. hockey team won at the very last moment. This is one of those things where in normal conversation, we don't talk frequently with participles or absolutes. So initially, this might seem kind of weird to utilize these things, okay? But I'm just trying to make you guys at least a little bit comfortable with them before you have to use these on your discussion board, okay? All right. Let's keep going because we're running out of time. All right, painting with the positives. All right, so here is what an appositive is. An appositive is a noun, okay, so a noun that adds a second detail or like an image to a preceding noun, so a noun in front of it. Okay, it's usually set off with commas, okay, and note I put the commas in there, so that means there's more than one. Okay, so our base sentence would say the raccoon enjoys eating turtle eggs. Okay, but let's plunk an appositive in there. Okay, so what we're going to do is the original noun that we have is a raccoon. So now we're going to add a noun after that to add a little bit more detail. Okay, but we're going to use our commas because our commas set off that appositive. So the noun that we're adding in there is scavenger, okay? And we had to use an article, an and the, had to use that to make it a grammatically correct sentence. So we would have the raccoon, a scavenger, enjoys eating turtle eggs. And do not forget the commas here, okay? All right. So, like a participle, we can also use an appositive phrase. So, all an appositive phrase is, it's an appositive with a little more detail. Okay, so let's look at that raccoon sentence again. So, we've got the raccoon, and now we made it fancy, comma, a midnight scavenger. So now I have an adjective attached to my noun there, who roams lake shorelines in search of food. Okay, so scavenger is our appositive, but adding who roams lake shores in search of food makes it an appositive phrase. Okay, so obviously just to use an appositive is a little bit easier than to attach the phrase on there. So we're going to do this one a little bit differently. Okay, here is what I want you guys to do. I want you, I'm not going to put you in breakout groups. I want you to utilize the chat box and really quickly share either privately or to everybody, a super simple sentence about this image that we're looking at right now. Don't worry about the positive just yet. Just write a simple sentence. Simple sentence about the image that we're looking at right here. And then we're going to use the simple sentence or sentences to add some appositives. Okay. Make sure it's a full sentence. We have to have a subject, a verb, and it has to express that complete thought. What do you guys see? What is this woman? Who is she? What is she doing in this picture? Ooh, these are some really good ones. Okay. I'm looking. You guys came up with some really, really good ones. All right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I am okay, so you know what I'm going to do? You guys have some super cool sentences. I'm going to take one of the simple ones. Okay, let's take this one. So I'm going to put it in the chat box so you guys can all see it. Okay. So the sentence is, this is just our simple sentence. So the old woman was distraught because of what she saw. All right. So let's look at this noun. Okay. Woman is our noun, right? She is the subject of our sentence. Now, looking at the first example that we got, the simple example, what can we add to the description of the old woman? So the old woman, comma, what do you think? And remember that that our appositive is a noun that just adds some detail about the woman. So what is a noun? Ooh, that would be a verb. What is a noun that we could use to describe this woman right here? This is where it kind of gets hard because you're using a noun to describe a noun. Okay. So let's see here. Ooh, that's close. So like you guys are giving me adjectives and things like that. We need that official noun. Let me put in an example and see if it helps. Okay, so I put the woman, a hard worker, was distraught because of what she saw. So the appositive here is actually just a worker, but I added that extra description in there. So, because worker is a noun, okay? Can you think of other nouns that you can use to describe? So, who is this woman? She's a worker. Let's see here, looking here, like maybe she, ooh, okay. So let's see how we can put a spin here. So the old woman. Okay. I'm taking some of the stuff that you guys are typing in here. Okay. So the old woman, a knowledge seeker, was distraught because of what she saw. Okay, so technically the seeker is a noun, and that's our appositive. Okay, all right. We're going to speed through the last ones here. We'll see if we can get to them. Okay, so that's an appositive. The fourth brushstroke is adjectives out of order. So if you guys recall correctly, an adjective is a word that's usually used to describe a noun. Okay, so adjectives out of order amplify the details of an image. Okay. They create like a spotlight. They intensify the image by creating kind of a different rhythm in our sentence. Usually we don't use this so much in academic writing, but it's usually used in fiction. So let's say our original sentence is the large, red-eyed, angry moose charged the intruder. Let's take some of those adjectives and actually put them out of order, put them out of where they would normally be. So the large moose, comma, red-eyed and angry, comma, charged the intruder. Okay, so these are adjectives because they are describing the moose. And actually large is describing moose too, but we just took some of the adjectives and we put them out of order. It just gives a little flair to our sentence. Okay, so again, really quickly, here's what I want you guys to do. Write me a simple sentence about this carousel. Don't worry about the adjectives out of order. Write me some sentences. Super, super simple. What about the carousel? Just looking for that subject, that verb, and complete thought. And then I will add the adjectives out of order for you guys. Okay, let me take this one. Okay, you guys came up with some good ones. Okay, so the first one that I'm looking at is, as the carousel went round and round, people started puking. So let's add some adjectives out of order. Okay, so when we do that, sometimes we just have to alter it a little bit. Okay, so I tweaked it just a little bit and I put the carousel, comma, bright and loud went round around. I should have said, and people started puking. Okay, so bright and loud describe the carousel. Let me look at another one. You guys had a couple of good ones. Okay. Here's another one. The carousel was the only object in the empty field. So again, the carousel is our noun, so we have to think of some adjectives for it. So let's do whoops, if I can spell correctly. Okay, the carousel, comma, broken and dirty, comma, was the only object in the empty field. Okay, so broken and dirty describe the carousel. And then I thought there was one more. Let's see here. I gotta go back up here. Ah, there it is. All right, so the old Gothic carousel was still in use. So we actually have a couple of adjectives in there. So what if we just did oops. Change the order of our sentence and put the carousel, old and Gothic, was still in use. Okay? So that's adjectives out of order. You're still using those descriptive words, but you're just giving your sentence a little bit of flair by popping them in a weird way, out of order, out of place, okay? So the last brush stroke is number 5, and it's just action verbs. All right? Action verbs. We don't want anything passive. We want something that is active. It, hits right away. Okay. So let's say our original sentences, we had the runaway horse was ridden into town by an old white whiskered rancher. Okay. We would change was ridden to an active verb. So the old white whiskered rancher rode the runaway horse into town. Okay. The other sentence, the grocery store was robbed by two armed men. Okay, let's flip our sentence around and actually have the subject be something that can do something. All right, so we've got two armed men robbed the grocery store. Okay, we want those active verbs. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. This last picture is Mission Impossible. There's Tom Cruise, hanging around. I want you guys to write a simple sentence using an action verb, okay? An action verb. We don't want those passive voices. So let's just really quickly in the next 2-3 minutes, give me some sentences that are simple. They use an action verb about this image that we're looking at. Okay, I'm going to let a couple more sentences come in. So 1 more minute. So if you're typing, finish typing. Okay, so far I only have one example. I sure want to see more than one. Okay. Whoops. Here we go. All right. So this is a really good one. The secret agent threw the bad guy out of the window. So threw is an active verb. Okay. It's an action verb. We don't have the bad guy was thrown out the window. We have the secret agent threw him out the window. Though it's been a while since I've seen Mission Impossible. I don't think he was ever the bad guy. But you get the idea, okay? So let's go back to the discussion board. So the discussion board needs to be completed before we meet on Monday. So not only do you have to work on a rough draft of your synthesis paper, I need you to work on the brush strokes. Here is what you are going to do. If you guys want to, you can use this story that's down here, or you can use any of the stories that you have written for, I think was like your mechanics and whatever, any of your mini stories. If you want to use one of your mini stories, you need to add, you're going to have to add some stuff to it. So you guys need to either using this story right here or one of the mini stories you have written, you need to add 4 or 5 of those brush strokes. Okay. Not only do you have to add them in, you have to highlight the brush stroke that you added and then label it. Okay. So I stare, I would highlight that. And then in parentheses, I would put action verb because I need to see what you added and that you know what brush stroke it is. Okay. So that's what you have to do for this brush strokes discussion board. Do you guys have any questions on that? Okay. Let's go to our class to-do list, okay? I scroll down. All right, you guys, today's the 28th. So the only thing that is due tonight is just responding to 2 of your classmates on the annotated bibliography source for revision group discussion board. And I think you guys completed that. So if you were able to get 2 responses done in class, then you don't have to worry about that for tonight, but make sure that you have 2 responses on that discussion board. So here's what I'm going to do, because I was just kind of looking at this to-do list. For Monday, you guys need to complete that brush strokes discussion board post. Okay, remember to use 4 of the 5 brush strokes, highlight what you add in, and label what kind of brush stroke it is, okay? You also need to be working on your synthesis paper, okay? You need to, I'm just going to kind of add some stuff here. Need to decide on at least 4 sources. Decide what points you'd like to make. Create a thesis. And then start writing. Easy as pie, right? Please don't forget to utilize the sources that are in the assignment folder for the synthesis paper, okay? Now, I was looking at this. I am not going to give you this journal. We're going to save that for later, okay? Because I want you to focus on the brush strokes discussion board and the synthesis paper. Those are the 2 things I really want you to focus on right now. So do not worry about journal entry number 5. And I will go and change the due date in the calendar and Blackboard too, okay? So the 2 things you really need to focus on are right here, brush strokes and then synthesis paper, okay? I'm gonna end up shifting the last few journal entries because I really, really want you to focus on the synthesis paper. Okay, so please make sure that you have a draft for your synthesis paper when we meet, because we're going to want to look at that and we're going to want to help each other, give each other some feedback, okay? Any questions on what you guys need to do tonight and for Monday? Okay, I'm going to let you guys go then. You put in the work, you had a lot of information, so go ahead and go. Enjoy the rest of your day, but work hard. Make sure you're prepared on Monday with the discussion board and the synthesis draft, okay? Email me with any questions, but beyond that, try to have a good weekend.